The evening glittered with champagne glasses, clinking cutlery, and the confident laughter of Lagos elite. Tunde strutted into the corporate banquet hall like a king surveying his kingdom, Amara clinging nervously to his arm. For months, she had dreaded events like these, rooms filled with judgmental eyes, whispers about her humble upbringing, and Tunde's unpredictable temper. The company's annual gala was supposed to be a celebration of success. Tunde had just closed a lucrative deal, and colleagues toasted to his brilliance. But beneath the celebration, Amara felt like a decoration, dressed in a borrowed gown, smiling weakly, pretending to belong. The moment came when the MC, in high spirits, invited Tunde to the stage for a short speech. He grabbed the mic confidently, flashing his trademark smirk. Instead of thanking his team or sharing future visions, Tunde turned the spotlight into a weapon. "My dear Amara is here," he said, gesturing toward her. All eyes turned. Her chest tightened. He continued, "She's still learning how to use a wine glass properly, so if you see her holding it like it's Fanta in a plastic cup, please forgive her." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Amara froze. Her cheeks burned, eyes welling with tears she tried desperately to hide. But Tunde wasn't finished. "You know," he added, smirking, "when you grow up in certain conditions, it takes time to adjust to this lifestyle. But don't worry, she has me to teach her." The laughter turned sharp, cutting into her like knives. Tunde smiled wider, soaking up the attention. Amara lowered her eyes, tears slipping down her face. He saw them. He smirked even more. That image, his grin while she broke, burned itself into her memory. In that moment, Amara silently vowed, one day, this smile will fade. One day, karma will answer. The car ride home was suffocating. Lagos traffic stretched endlessly, but the silence inside the SUV was worse. Amara sat rigid in the passenger seat, clutching her small purse tightly against her chest. Tunde tapped his fingers on the steering wheel, humming to himself. He glanced at her red, swollen eyes and chuckled. "Oh, come on, Amara. Don't tell me you're crying over that." Her voice cracked. "Do you know how humiliating that was? Everyone was laughing at me." "Exactly," he replied smugly. "You gave them entertainment. It was harmless. You should learn to laugh at yourself. Besides, without me, nobody in that hole would even know you exist." Each word was a dagger. He dismissed her pain like it was nothing. She turned her face to the window, tears blurring the neon lights of the city. He smirked again, enjoying her silence. "This is why you'll never survive without me. You're too soft, too emotional. I toughen you up." But while he thought he was breaking her down, he was unknowingly planting something stronger. In her silence, Amara wasn't just hurting. She was growing. She replayed his smirk in her mind like fuel. She whispered to herself, "I'll never forget this. Never." The next morning, Amara sat in Kimi's cozy living room. Her best friend poured her tea, watching as Amara recounted the humiliation. Kimi's eyes flashed with anger. "I've told you before, Amara," Kimi said firmly. "This man doesn't love you. He loves control. He loves making you small so he can feel big." Amara sighed. "But we've been together for years. I've invested so much time. What if I leave and regret it?" Kimi leaned forward, gripping her hand. "Listen to me. Staying in pain because of time wasted is the biggest mistake. You think he'll change? Men like Tunde don't change until life forces them. And trust me, karma doesn't miss." Amara's tears returned. "But he wasn't always like this. He used to be sweet, caring." "That was an act," Kimi interrupted. "The real him is a man who smirked while you cried." Amara sat silently, torn between love and truth. Kimi's words planted seeds of clarity, but fear still held her hostage. She wasn't ready to walk away. Not yet. Kimi, unwilling to stay idle, began digging. She had heard whispers about Tunde's flashy lifestyle, cars, parties, expensive gifts he couldn't possibly afford on his salary. Her instinct screamed that something darker lurked beneath. One evening, Kimi confronted Amara with screenshot from social media. Tunde in clubs, surrounded by women. Tunde flaunting money, gambling, posting with influencers. Is living a double life, Amara, Kimi said. And you're paying the emotional price. Amora's heart pounded. She wanted to deny it, but the evidence was undeniable. She confronted Tunde that night. He didn't flinch. Instead, he laughed. So what? I'm a man. Men have needs. Don't act surprised. Her jaw dropped. And humiliating me? That's part of being a man, too. He smirked, sipping his drink. Exactly. You should be grateful I even keep you around. Without me, who are you? That night, Amara cried herself to sleep. But this time, the tears tasted different. They weren't just sadness. They were transforming into resolve. Weeks later, another corporate dinner. Amara dreaded it, but Tunde insisted she attend. He dressed her up, ordered her around like a doll, and strutted into the room. Halfway through the evening, while laughing with colleagues, Tunde decided to strike again. You know, he said loudly, hand on Amara's shoulder. She still can't pronounce some English word properly. Imagine that, an adult struggling like a primary school child. The table erupted in laughter. Amara's hand shook as her eyes filled with tears. This time, she didn't bow her head. She stared at him, through her tears, with a piercing glare. For the first time, people noticed her pain. The laughter faded into awkward silence. Colleagues shifted uncomfortably. The humiliation backfired. Tunde, oblivious, forced a chuckle. But Amara had reached her limit. She stood abruptly, her chair screeching. Enjoy your audience, she whispered. I'm done being your joke. She walked out, tears streaming, but with a newfound strength in her stride. Tunde smirked again, masking his unease. He didn't realize it yet, but her breaking point was the beginning of his downfall. The conference hall buzzed with voices, the air-conditioned chill fighting the Lagos heat outside. Amara sat at the edge of the audience, notebook open, trying to drown her sadness and loaning. The guest speaker, a tall, confident man in a navy blue suit, spoke about entrepreneurship and resilience. His name was David Okoye, a respected businessman with a calm presence that instantly commanded respect. Unlike Tunde's arrogance, David's tone was warm, his words practical. In life and business, he said, your true value isn't proven when things are easy. It's revealed when everything falls apart. The words pierced Amara like an arrow. She scribbled them down, though her hand trembled. During the networking break, David approached her. You look deep in thought, he said kindly. Amara smiled faintly. Your speech, it hit home. I needed to hear that. He extended a hand. David. Amara. The handshake lingered, not romantically but with respect. For the first time in months, she felt seen, not as an accessory, not as a joke, but as a person with a voice. David didn't ask about her looks, her background, or her status. He asked about her dreams. As they talked, Amara noticed a stark difference between him and Tunde. Where Tunde silenced her, David encouraged her. Where Tunde smirked at her tears, David listened to her unspoken pain. That day, a seed of hope was planted. Not for love yet, but for freedom. Tunde's empire wasn't as solid as he pretended. The flashy cars, champagne parties, and designer suits were built on quicksand, risky loans, gambling debts, and fraudulent deals. He had built a castle of glass, and cracks were beginning to spread. Investors whispered. Contracts slipped. A single lawsuit from a foreign partner triggered panic. Banks called in loans. The man who once laughed loudly in boardrooms now clenched his jaw, hiding his panic behind fake smiles. At home, Amara noticed the tension. He snapped at her more often, but still maintained his arrogance. Don't worry about my business. Women like you don't understand numbers, he said one night when she asked. But the truth was glaring. His empire was shaking. His friends grew distant, sensing the storm. Still, Tunde smirked, convincing himself he could gamble his way out. But karma had already started her work. One evening, Amara's phone buzzed with a message from Kimi. Check this out. You need to see. Attached was a video. Tunde in a nightclub, arm draped around another woman, whispering into her ear. Another clip showed him handing her money, bragging about keeping Amara in line. Amara's chest tightened. Her trembling hand searched Tunde's drawer later that night and found a second phone hidden under files. Unlocking it, she discovered dozens of messages, women asking for rent money, pictures, promises. When he walked in, she confronted him. "Tunde, what is this?" Her voice cracked. He glanced at the phone, then back at her with a smirk. "So? You found it. And what? You think you can survive without me?" Her tears fell, but this time they weren't from weakness. "After everything, this is how you repay me." He leaned closer, whispering cruelly, "I can replace you in one night. Don't forget who feeds you." That night, Amora's heart shattered, but her resolve hardened. She knew then, leaving him wasn't just an option. It was survival. At dawn, Amara packed her few belongings into 2 small suitcases. She didn't tell him. She didn't cry. She moved quietly, determinedly. Kimi waited outside with her car. As she closed the door to Tunde's apartment, memories rushed in. His smirks, his humiliations, the night she cried herself to sleep. She whispered softly, "No more." When Tunde woke up later, he found the apartment empty. At first, he laughed. "She'll be back. She always comes back." But hours turned into days, and Amara never returned. Calls went unanswered. His texts were left unread. Silence became her weapon. Meanwhile, Amara stayed with Kimi, slowly breathing freedom for the first time. She met David again at a small seminar, who noticed her lighter spirit. He didn't pry, but simply said, "Sometimes walking away is the bravest thing." And Amara, for the first time in years, believed it. The first real blow came swiftly. Tunde's bank accounts were frozen. An investor filed fraud charges. His prized Mercedes was repossessed in broad daylight. Neighbors gathered, whispering. He stormed around his apartment, smashing glasses, calling lawyers who suddenly stopped answering. His phone buzzed nonstop, not from admirers, but from creditors. For the first time, Tunde sat in silence, his smirk gone. He reached for his phone and dialed Amara. No answer. He tried again. Still silence. He sent a message. "I need you. Come back." Amara saw it, her heart heavy, but she didn't reply. She remembered the gala, the nightclub, the cool whisper, "I can replace you in one night." Karma had only knocked once, and already Tunde was unraveling. He didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning. By 8:12 a.m., the story had already hit 3 blogs and 1 business daily. Adeyemi Global under investigation, shell firms, fake invoices, and unpaid taxes. WhatsApp broadcasts flew through office group chats. A former intern posted an old photo with Tunde and wrote, "The signs were there, man mocked people for sport." Comments piled up like stones. At Adeyemi Global, the reception was unusually quiet. Security exchanged looks as cameras gathered outside. Staff whispered in clusters. Those who once laughed at Tunde's jokes now stuttered their keyboards like they were sacred texts. HR scheduled an urgent all-hands. No one had questions. They all had answers. Tunde arrived at 9:03 a.m. in a wrinkled blazer. For the first time, he avoided reflective surfaces. The lobby mirror that usually fed his ego now felt like an accomplice to the headlines. He shoved through the crowd and took the stage, jaw clenched, phone vibrating itself to death in his pocket. On the 6th floor, board members waited. The chair cleared his throat. "We're suspending you as CEO pending investigation. Legal will be in touch." Tunde laughed, a brittle, hollow sound. "You think you can run this without me?" "No," the chair replied. "We think we can finally breathe without you." In the corridor, an accountant he once belittled, the man he'd called Calculator Boy, walked past with a box of files. Their eyes met. Didn't smirk. He simply nodded, human to human. It stung more than mockery. By noon, 2 clients terminated contracts. A supplier demanded immediate payment. The PR agency drafted a clarification that read like surrender flag. On Twitter, now X, a hashtag trended. #FromSmirkedToSorry. Strangers stitched together clips of his old speeches with today's headlines. One comment under a video of him swaggering out of a G-Wagon read, "Pride always buys a premium crash package." Across town, Amara sat at Kimi's dining table, watching a live stream of reporters outside the office. Her hand trembled, not from glee, but from the surreal weight of justice arriving in daylight. "How do you feel?" Kimi asked. "Sad," Amara said honestly, "but also seen." She remembered the gala, the way his grin widened as her tears fell. That memory no longer hurt. It clarified. Calmer, it seemed, didn't need theatrics. It preferred paperwork and patient timing. At 3:40 p.m., Tunde walked out of the building into a gauntlet of microphones. "Mr. Adeyemi, did you falsify invoices? Is it true you siphoned funds into a sister company? Do you regret your leadership style?" He almost said something cruel. Then he saw his reflection in a camera lens, eyes red, mouth tight, shoulders slumped. He swallowed. No comment. He muttered, pushing through. By evening, the city moved on, as it always does. Only Tunde's world stayed loud. Lawyers, creditors, a furious landlord. And somewhere between the noise and the silence, he heard an old sentence he once spat. "Without me, who are you?" It rang back at him. This time, there was an answer he didn't like. Rain gathered over Soyalier like a verdict. At 8:19 p.m., someone knocked on Kimi's door. Kimi checked the peephole and turned to Amara. "It's him." Amara inhaled, exhaled. "Open it. Leave the chain." Kimi cracked the door. Tunde stood on the landing, hair damp, eyes swollen as if sleep had collapsed just like everything else. "Please," he said, voice hoarse. "I need to speak to Amara." Kimi looked to Amara. Amara stepped forward. No makeup, a plain tee, clean, calm eyes. Tunde flinched. The last time he'd seen her, he expected mascara-streaked tears. He found steady rain and steadier boundaries. "I've lost everything," he blurted. "They froze my accounts. My lawyer wants a retainer I don't have. People are saying things that aren't true, twisting." "Which part is twisted?" Amara asked softly. "The part where you humiliated me in rooms full of strangers, or the part where you kept a second phone for your side projects?" He tried a smile. Reflex, not joy. It failed. "I was under pressure. I said things I didn't mean." "You meant them," she said. "That's why you said them so easily." He gripped the wet railing. "I'm sorry." The words clattered awkwardly in his mouth, as if they'd never lived there before. "I need you. You always calmed things. You always made me look better." "And that was a problem," she replied. "I made you look better while you made me feel worse." A neighbor's door opened. Curious eyes peered out. Tunde shifted. "Can we talk inside?" "No," Kimi said flatly. Amara didn't raise her voice. She didn't perform pain. "Tunde," she said, "you smiled when I cried. Today, I don't need revenge. I need peace. I don't hate you. I'm done with you." He reached for her hand. She stepped back. The small movement felt larger than the tallest building he'd ever boasted about. He looked down, raindrops gathering on his cuffs like tiny, relentless truths. "Please," he whispered. "I have nowhere." "You have consequences," Amara answered. "Start there." She closed the door gently. On the other side, she trembled for a second, old reflex, then straightened, shoulders square. Kimi hugged her. "You did it." "No," Amara said, a tired smile forming. "I finally stopped doing it for him." Outside, Tunde stood in the rain long enough to learn the difference between water and cleansing. Healing looked like small, ordinary things, labeled spice jars, a Google Sheet budget, a second-hand oven that hummed like a stubborn auntie. Amara named her fledgling catering brand Salt and Steam, because that's what her kitchen sounded like when Hope started working. At first it was boxed lunches, jollof chicken bowls, grilled fish with plantain, light oaf salads, delivered to 3 office blocks Kimi had connections in. Amara hand-wrote thank you notes and taped them to every lid. Feedback trickled in. Less oil next time. Love the pepper balance. Can you add a vegan option? She listened. She adjusted. She didn't flinch at critique. She had already survived worse. David visited the tiny rental kitchen on a Saturday. He didn't try to take charge. He carried crates. He fixed a squeaky hinge. You've got repeat customers, he noted, scanning the order board. That's the real metric. She laughed. Repeat customers and a blender that doesn't scream. He smiled. We can get you financing for a real one. Small Business Fund has a fair package. I'll connect you, but you decide. That sentence, you decide, landed like sun through a dusty window. She had been decided for, managed, mocked. Now, each choice was hers. She applied for a microloan, negotiated interest down 2 points, Kimi coached her, and bought a commercial blender that purred like an apology. Instagram carried her story. She posted quiet videos, hand-seasoning chicken, steam lifting off stew, neatly stacked meal packs. No filters, no pretense. The comment that made her cry, good tears, read, you cook like my mother who passed. Your food tastes like home. There were setbacks. One delivery rider disappeared with 6 orders. She refunded the clients, posted a transparent apology, and offered a discount. Orders increased the next day. A supplier tried to exploit her. She walked away and found a woman-owned alternative that delivered on time and called her sis. Her hands blistered. She learned to pace prep and hired Bazarat, a quiet genius with knife skills and gospel playlists. At night, Amara journaled. Not about Tunde, about margins, menu rotations, and a goal, corporate catering for 200. She wrote a speech outline for a Women in Business panel she'd been invited to. She practiced in front of Kimi, who clapped between mouthfuls of suya. Look at you, Kimi teased. From tears to TED Talk. N.A. baby steps, Amara grinned. One evening, David lingered after inventory. You know, he said carefully, you don't have to prove anything to me, or to anyone. I know, she replied, but I like proving things to myself. He nodded, a quiet pride in his eyes. Then he took his leave without insisting on walking her to the gate. Respect, she realized, often looks like a man not assuming you need him to be a hero. Lagos looks different when you can't afford it. Tunde learned the city by foot again. Okada fumes. Fried a car at dusk, the hush between generators switching. He rented a room above a mechanic's workshop. The ceiling fan had 2 speeds, loud and louder. Friends stopped replying. The nightlife he once owned had a new bouncer who called him bros without recognition. He tried to sell a watch. The buyer inspected it like a crime scene and offered peanuts. He took it. He called an old mistress. Who's this? She asked. He hung up. He phoned his mother. She sighed long and soft. You think you're the first man to fall? You are the first who thinks pride is a mattress. He stared at peeling paint. I messed up. Finally, she said, start by telling the truth to yourself, not to me. He tried the truth in small doses. He wrote a list of people he had humiliated, interns, waiters, drivers, and imagined their faces when he smiled at their discomfort. He had called it banter. He began to see it for what it was, bullying with a suit on. He sent Amara a single text. You didn't deserve any of it. I'm sorry. He didn't add excuses. He didn't send another when she didn't reply. At a job interview with a vendor he'd once mocked, the HR woman glanced at his CV, then at him. This is a junior account role, she said. You used to run your own company. I used to run for myself, he blurted. Surprised by his honesty, she studied him. We'll be in touch, she said, which in HR language meant try not to break while you wait. Night stretched. He scrolled Instagram and found Salt and Steam. Amara, hair wrap, laughing with a team of women around stainless tables. Comments. Chef Amara, Abik saved me 2 bowls. Proud of you. He remembered her quiet in their hallway as he bragged on phone calls, remembered her wiping her eyes in bathrooms that smelled of expensive soap. He closed the app and looked at his hands. They shook, not with rage this time, but with the ache of accountability. It wasn't redemption. It was the first rung on a ladder he wasn't sure he had the courage to climb. Salt and Steam landed its biggest contract yet, a bank's quarterly training. 220 staff, 2 days. Amara built a spreadsheet like battle plans. Trays, timings, transit, backups. Bazarat prepped spice blends. Kimi handled logistics and bullied the cold room guy into showing up early. If you come late, don't come at all, uncle. David introduced a reliable rental van service and then stepped back. On day one, the whole smelled like stew and success. Servers moved in neat lines. The bank's HR head tasted a spoonful and smiled. Clean. Balanced. Who's the chef? Amara raised a hand. Team effort, she said, and meant it. During cleanup, an organizer approached. We're hosting a Women in Leadership Forum next Friday. We want you to speak for 10 minutes about resilience. And, if you can, handle the refreshments. Kimi squealed. Bazarat danced with a spoon. Amara nodded, heart steady. I'll be honored. That Friday, in a navy jumpsuit and clear voice, she told the truth without theatrics. I thought silence made me strong. It made me invisible. I thought crime made me weak. It made me honest. The day I chose myself, my life chose me back. Applause rose, not a roar, but something better, warm, sustained, deserved. Afterward, she returned to the back where chafing dishes gleamed like polished metals. David appeared, hands in pockets. You were excellent. She smiled. Team was excellent. I just held the MIC. He hesitated. Then, I'd like to take you to dinner. Not to advise, not to mentor, to enjoy your company. If the timing's wrong, I'll ask again another year. Amara considered, not the man, but the woman she had become. The kind who chooses slowly, from fullness not fear. Dinner, she said, but I'm paying half. He laughed. Non-negotiable. Deal. As the hall emptied, Amara checked her phone. A message from an unknown number glowed. We loved your food. Can you handle our end-of-year gala? 400 guests. She exhaled a grateful laugh that sounded nothing like survival and everything like living. Outside, Lagos hummed her endless song. Keeks, hawkers, horns, skies softening into evening. Amara stood in the doorway of a new beginning, not waiting for karma to finish its work, but busy with haze. Somewhere far from this light, a man wrestled with his reflection. Here, surrounded by steam and smiling faces, a woman held her future with steady hands. The conference hall was buzzing with energy, camera flashes, journalists scribbling notes, and entrepreneurs networking. Salt and Steam had been invited to cater, and Amara stood at the buffet, greeting guests with her signature warm smile. Her business logo was proudly displayed on a banner behind her. Salt and Steam, food that feels like home. Then it happened. Tunde walked in. His once-tailored suits had given way to a poly-fitted jacket. He tried to keep his chin high, but whispers trailed behind him like shadows. That's him, the fraud guy. Didn't he lose everything? Tunde spotted Amara across the room. For a second, his jaw clenched, then softened into a false smirk, the old reflex. He approached the table, ignoring the awkward glances. Amara, he said, voice low. So, this is what you're doing now? Food service. The words were meant as mockery, but they came out brittle. Amara didn't flinch. She straightened, smiling calmly. Yes, feeding people honestly. Better than feeding lies. Gasps spread among nearby guests. One woman murmured, well said. Tunde's smirk faltered. He tried to laugh it off, but the sound was hollow. The spotlight, once his weapon, now burned against him. He quickly excused himself, but the whispers followed. Amara turned back to her team, unfazed. The encounter hadn't shaken her. If anything, it proved that the tables had started turning. Weeks later, Amara sat in her small office, reviewing resumes. Salt and Steam was expanding. She needed new staff. Her assistant, Bazarat, placed a file on her desk. Madam, here's another application. You might want to see this one. Amara scanned the name and froze. Tunde Adeyemi. Her chest tightened. She read the cover letter. It was humble, too humble. He was applying for a managerial role, willing to take a fraction of what he once made. Bazarat whispered, should we trash it? Amara shook her head slowly. No, let's call him in. 2 days later, Tunde walked into the office. He looked smaller, his arrogance stripped away, his eyes tired. He sat across from Amara, unable to meet her gaze. So, she said evenly, you're applying here. He nodded. I, I need a chance. I know I messed up, but I can work hard. Please, Amara. Silence hung between them. At last, she closed the file. You know, once upon a time, you told me I'd be nothing without you. Now here you are, asking for a place at my table. His lips trembled. I'm sorry. I really am. Amara leaned forward. I don't hate you, Tunde. But this company is built on respect, and respect is something you never gave me. She slid the file back to him. I can't hire you. Tunde swallowed hard. He stood, nodded, and left without protest. For Amara, it wasn't about revenge. It was closure. Months passed. Tunde's downfall deepened. His final property was seized. Creditors stripped him bare. The court ordered repayment he couldn't afford. He showed up at hearings in faded shirts, hiding from cameras that once adored him. One afternoon, outside the courthouse, he saw her again, Amara, stepping out of a sleek branded van, salt and steam catering trays carried by her team. At her side was David, steady and supportive. Their laughter floated in the air, light and unforced. Tunde's chest burned. Once, he had been the reason she cried in public. Now, he was the outsider watching her joy. He forced a smirk, that old mask. But as their eyes met, Amara smiled back. Not a smirk, not cruelty. Just calm, quiet victory. That smile broke him more than any insult could. For the first time, he realized her tears had not been weakness. They had been transformation. Tunde sat alone in his dingy room, staring at unpaid bills. Thoughts grew darker by the hour. Maybe it's better to disappear. Maybe this pain ends if I end it. But then his phone buzzed. It was his mother. Tunde, she said softly, you've fallen. Yes, but falling doesn't mean you must stay on the ground. Own your sins. Start again, even if from zero. He broke down, sobbing in a way he never allowed himself before. He wrote letters of apology to people he had wronged, former employees, family members, even a message he never sent to Amara. It wasn't redemption yet, but it was a start. Whether he rebuilt or not remained uncertain. His future balanced on a knife's edge, ruin or rebirth. The final scene unfolded at a Women in Business gala. Amara stood at the podium, elegant and radiant. Behind her, a large banner read, Empowered Women, Empowering Nations. She shared her journey, not to shame anyone, but to inspire. He smiled when I cried. She told the audience, her voice steady. But I learned that tears are not weakness. They are water, and water grows gardens, like this one, salt and steam. The hall erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. David, seated in the front row, clapped with quiet pride. Meanwhile, outside the hall, Tunde lingered in the shadows, listening through the doors. He bowed his head, not in arrogance this time, but in acceptance. Inside, Amara ended with the words that became the story's heartbeat. Karma may take its time, but it never misses. And when it comes, it doesn't just punish, it teaches. The audience rose to their feet, cheering. Amara smiled, not out of revenge, but out of peace. The circle was complete.